Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Over the past few weeks, social media have been swamped by gory pictures of dead bodies of men, women, and children allegedly killed by herdsmen rampaging through farming communities in Enugu State, and to a lesser extent, other states in the southeast of Nigeria. Public anger and frustration over this development are at a boiling point and have indeed led to protests in the streets of Enugu, where the overwhelming perception is that the government of Governor Peter Mba is not doing enough to address the attacks, and that his inaction actually serves as an encouragement to whoever that is behind this unfolding carnage on human lives. For a quick chat around that, we're now being joined by Dr. Chukwudi Anyianuka, a media and journalism lecturer who recently made a fact-finding tour of Eyewitness, the hotbed of the attacks. Dr. Anyianuka is also a member of the Guild of Public Affairs Analysts of Nigeria and National Publicity Secretary, Association of Communication Scholars and Professionals of Nigeria. Good morning, Doctor. Good to have you join us on the morning show today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
All right. Thank you very much. Give us your eyewitness account of what is happening. The media, of course, has been awash with so many gory pictures, stories here and there. The intervention we heard from the Deputy Governor of the state, the intervention especially from the Catholic Mission in Enugu State, particularly around the area where it is the hotbed there. And we understand that you have even, taken a trip down there to assess things for yourself. What did you find out? What is going on? And is it real, everything that we're hearing in the media that is happening in that part of Enugu State?
Thank you very much. Your narrative is quite correct in terms of the brouhaha, or how would I put it, in terms of the protests and all the narratives we've been hearing concerning the killings. So on Friday, I actually joined a team of journalists. There are about 30 of us, and we traveled to, first of all, Ikem, and then, of course, we now traveled to Ehamufu to ascertain the veracity of those narratives. But I can tell you that we also had the opportunity of interviewing a lot of locals. We had to talk to them to find out exactly their own points of view concerning the alleged killings. First of all, the protests we saw that were circulated on the social media kind of indicated that there were mass killings, but we didn't see anything like that on the spot. First of all, we visited an area that was a farm settlement. I think that place, if I'm not mistaken, is called Obete. It's called Obete, similar to the Obete in Enugu, but that is the rail line area. I think they call it the Olie Uzo Ago. Olie Uzo Ago. I think that's what they call Olie Uzo Ubo. Ubo actually being strained. So I understand that there was a time when locals would, during the farming season, would migrate to that place and then leave, as a community. They also had school around there, so they lived as a community in that neighborhood where they would farm. As soon as the farming season was concluded, they would return back to their homesteads. But right now, that place is actually deserted. But at what point did that place get deserted? Why did the locals leave? I understand there was an incident that occurred in 2022, January, and then sometime in December 2022, where entire communities were sacked completely on account of, the crisis. I mean, they were attacked, I understand, by Fulani herdsmen. They were attacked and they had to leave their communities in drove. Then, we began to question, wanted to know, between 2022 and today, has there been any such incident that occurred? But what we were able to find out, number one, we found out that, yes, indeed, somebody was killed. A certain Donatus Ndubisi was actually killed in the farm. That's one. And then we also found out that there was a woman that was raped a woman that was raped, and then the original account, or the earlier account we heard, was that after the woman was raped, that they actually stuck a stick into her private part, and that she had actually died and was in the mortuary. But I can tell you that we actually went to the home of that woman and we interviewed her. She's alive. I may not say that she's hale and healthy, because she explained to us that she was still having difficulty in walking. But then that hadn't stopped her from going to her farm. So that was a very false narrative. We also wanted to find out whether there was any incident of mass killing. And we can tell you, I can speak, authoritatively, that all the reports we heard does not indicate that there has been any such mass killings. So when people report that about 100 or 200 people had been killed and murdered, and then, these things go on social media, there actually wasn't anything like that. But then again, we must also say that there is still skirmishes of insecurity. The local government chairman admitted as much, that there are still skirmishes of insecurity. But that is not also different from what we are seeing in some other communities. I'd like to draw an example. Very recently, we saw a video that went viral. This thing happened at Uboka is actually somewhere in Kano East local government area. I don't know, you probably would have seen it, where a young man was taking a video, and he was actually showing how a Fulani herdsman with his cattle, the man was pulling out cassava, from the farms and then feeding it to the cows. And he was actually saying that, no, this is unfair, that this might actually lead to some kind of crisis. So I wanted to draw some kind of similarity between the two incidents. So we have issues of insecurity in issues of Hamufu particularly, but I can say that from all the things we observed on Friday, that there has not been any such mass killings as advertised or as promoted.
All right. Ehamufu. That's where you have, assessed, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. You said Ehamufu. But there's been reports,
yes,
especially by a social media influencer called Nedu Ani, who's talked about, the Udi local government area being under siege, both in Afa, Egede, Eke, and some other towns. They've said that, they've witnessed a tremendous amount of killings. And we did see videos from women for weeks protesting. And I know that the government of Enugu State have alleged or have said that these attacks are orchestrated, and they've, accused certain individuals who they say are criminal agitators and failed political elements of plotting this smear campaign against Governor Peter Mba's administration. I'd like for you to assess that claim, especially in the Udi local government. I wonder if that's the same area where Ehamufu is. And also the claim by the Enugu state government that these killings are orchestrated.
Okay, OG, I can tell you that Udi is actually quite different from Ehamufu. Ehamufu is located in issues or local government area, while Udi, some of those towns that you mentioned now, are located in Udi local government area. I cannot speak very authoritatively concerning the Udi local government, but I'd like to also maybe use one of the visits we made to the Command and Control Center to speak based on the knowledge that I have, because we were taken to the Command and Control Center and we saw the sophisticated nature of the equipment that were there. We were made to understand that those things were, the images we saw were being fed by thermal cameras that are AI embedded. Because from there we could see some of the flashpoint areas in Enugu State where we had issues of insecurity from time to time. We could see the vast lands of issues. Honestly speaking, I do not know. The security agencies might be in a better position to answer some of the questions you've raised concerning the activities in Udi. But if from what we observed at the Command and Control Center, I can tell you that there are cameras everywhere. I asked a question that they didn't even answer it. I said, how were these cameras actually planted? Are they actually in the satellite? Because the way the images were, they could zoom to even little objects that people were carrying, passers-by were carrying and moving about. And I was actually stunned that we had such a Command and Control Center. I must also say that the Enugu state government is doing itself a disservice, by not promoting the kind of equipment they have. One of the questions that I raised that day was, are the security agencies, those who man the roads, are they aware that we even have such sophisticated equipment that actually captures them? We've had incidences of security agencies harassing innocent citizens on the road, extorting money from them. From that Command and Control Center, you could see these things clearly. They will zoom into faces, and you could see the faces of the security agents. They can be easily identified. And they explained that, the amount of information that they generate on a daily basis is also analyzed. And what they do, they also carry out a behavioral analysis. So I want to believe that the security agencies will be in a better position to know whether there have been such crisis in Udi local government area. Let me also say that we are aware that there are people who actually also, deploy misinformation, in order to gain some political mileage. We have seen in the past where people have also, manipulated issues of insecurity in order to oust someone from government. Let us also take our minds back to the Bring Back Our Girls campaign. When Goodluck Jonathan was the president of the Nigerian nation, we saw how he was eventually ousted out of office. We know that a lot of the campaign was around insecurity. We saw people who were also, magnifying figures, exaggerating events on account of the fact that they wanted to, gain that political position. They wanted to make sure that Jonathan did not continue as governor. So if maybe I cannot say authoritatively, I think I mentioned that earlier. So if there are people who are using such stuff, maybe because they intend to dent the image of the state government, I think the security agencies, it is their responsibility to, with all the equipment we saw, with all the facilities we saw, I don't see why such people should not be, such thing cannot be investigated to the point that we will narrow it down to such persons who are carrying such rumors and have them arrested and prosecuted, if that is the case in this case.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Chukwuma. Now, Honorable Obiago was on another platform.
Chukwudi is my name.
Apologies, Chukwudi, on Dr. Chukwudi. And he spoke on the issue in Isuzu local government, right? And Isuzu, local government. And this is what he said. He said the protest pertaining to the women who came out that happened was orchestrated and planned because the women came to his council and told him that some people pushed them into going for this protest. And what they were told was that the cows on the farms belonged to the government and that the reason for the planned protest is because of a ranching project. So he implied that the people believe that the government have an interest. Most women who protested were referring to what happened years ago. They are being misled to believe that the government is the one frustrating them. So basically, he said that the women who even came out to protest in the first place did not even know why they were there. Now, I have to confirm, are you saying that at this time, there's nothing like any herdsmen killing anyone? That's my first. Are you saying that is not the case? Then second, you talked about and you admitted that a man was indeed killed and a woman was raped. Juxtaposing that with the sophisticated equipment that you've just spoken about, whatever happened to those two people? Was there any follow-up to the man who was killed? The woman who was raped, I don't know if there's a gravity to how bad the situation is, because I don't know if you meant the fact that she didn't die, but she was only raped means that there was information. There's a part to that story that is true. So I just want you to expatiate on these issues. Are you saying there is nothing like this? Because that's really the crux of this conversation. Are you saying there is nothing like any herdsman situation right now? One, the man who was killed, this sophisticated equipment, are they following up on that? Why was he killed? Where was he killed? Who killed him? The woman who was raped, who raped her? Why was she raped? That's just what I want you to clarify for me here.
Okay, Kachi, thank you very much for that question. First of all, let me take it from the middle. Who killed Ndubisi Donatus? I was invited, one of the local stations in Enugu here invited me a couple of days ago to speak on this matter. And I asked the question, who killed Donatus? Because even during the radio program, people actually called in to say, that the Ndubisi, some people called to say that this young man was actually murdered by Fulani herdsmen. And then We also got other calls that said, no, this woman was not murdered by Fulani herdsmen. I think there's a dearth in investigative journalism. I want to indict, this is my major constituency, the media. I want to first of all indict, the media and say, we're not actually doing the proper job that we should do. I'm in the classroom right now. I know I also worked a little as an investigative journalist. So we need people who will go undercover to issues or to actually unravel the true situation. Okay, because the mother of, one of the narratives we heard was that the mother of Ndubisi Donatus said that those who murdered her son, that she heard them when they were discussing in their local dialect. This was part of the narratives we heard, part of the versions we heard. And then we had another person who called in to say, no, he was murdered by Fulani herdsmen. So we need to, I'm not in a position to say exactly what happened, but the truth is that we cannot say for certainty, or with certainty at this time, that he was murdered by Fulani herdsmen. But again, let us also look at the modus operandi of the Fulani herdsmen. I think we all know how they come in and they sack entire communities. Are you saying that the Fulani herdsmen, this is of course, I'm raising a question, and I do not know, it's like a rhetoric question. We should ask ourselves this question. Are you saying that the Fulani herdsmen just came into that community because they wanted to kill that young man? What will be their motive for wanting to do that? Was he disturbing them or preventing them from probably feeding their cattle? So we need to raise such questions. We need to determine, and this is the responsibility of security agencies, primarily to unravel crimes so that stuff of this nature will not happen in future. I mean, it's about time we began to measure the performance of our security agencies based on the amount of crimes that are able to, solve. We need this thing solved. Okay, now, going to the other question, if you could remind me, I think the first one is about, am I saying that there hasn't been any Fulani killings?
Yes, so the first was whether or not, and I think you just
has there been any
that.
Fulani killings?
Yes, the first was whether or not there's any Fulani killings.
Okay, I can only rely on the narratives of the people we spoke to.
Okay.
I can only rely on the narratives of the people we spoke to. We went to a particular community called Ebo or Abo. I don't know actually how it's pronounced, but at least we interviewed them. One of them said that between January and as at Friday, that they discovered about 4 dead bodies in one of the farms. And by the time they discovered these dead bodies, that the bodies were rotting away. Sometimes because we're very cynical in terms of our training and skeptical, we don't believe everything people say. So we had to we asked very hard questions. So at the time you discovered this body, who was responsible for that death? How was these people killed? You know what I mean? Because we needed to ask questions. It's not just enough to say you discovered dead bodies. You discovered dead bodies. Okay, these people were probably murdered in January. Let's believe that this is actually a true narrative. But you discovered these dead bodies in February. Now, did you report these missing persons? Are they not part of your community? At what time, did you discover that they were missing? Because they said the bodies were already rotting away. So we could that's the only narrative we could rely upon. And someone there in that same community actually said that the local government chairman, that is Obiora Obegu, Honorable Obiora Obegu, had organized village hunters, and that what their responsibility was to sometimes escort the farmers, to their farms, and then, after they are done farming, then they'll escort them back, to provide some kind of security, as much as the security that the state government is providing. May I also use this opportunity to say that Obiora Obegu took us through the road that is currently being constructed by the state government. It's about 21.7 kilometer road. We also heard that about 50 soldiers had been deployed to Isuzu, particularly, on account of the level of insecurity that is going on, and that had been going on before that time. But there was a comparison that was made between the past and the present. And even the local government chairman, in his own brief, when he was briefing us, said that there has been a high reduction in the levels of crime. We actually want to see a total elimination of crime. You know, it's not impossible. Even in places where you have very sophisticated police forces, security agencies, and the equipment, we still see killings going on once in a while. You know, that can't be totally eliminated. But we're looking at a situation, we want a situation where the people of Ehamufu and the people of Isuzo, you know, will be very comfortable in their homesteads, will be able to go to their farms without being harassed, without being killed, so that they can do their job, you know, do their farming and live their lives peacefully or peaceably. You know, we do not want a situation where women will be raped, where women will be made to, they will be so scared to go and, you know, harvest the crops that they have in their farms. You know, so those are the two questions you asked. This is what I have to say about it. I can't say, I can only rely on what they have told us and to also convey that information to you. I also want to emphasize, you know, in rounding off this question, that the CCC, I'm talking about the Command and Control Center, with the level of information that is coming in there, I mean, if the analysis is properly done, I believe that Enugu state government has the capability of preempting some of these crimes and stopping them even before they happen.
All right. Can you clarify for us at whose instance your fact-finding trip to that area was? Were you invited with the other journalists that you embarked on it? You know, who coordinated it? I'm asking so that we can be better informed about the criticism that has trailed the reluctance of different government agencies to respond in the manner that locals will appreciate and applaud. I like the fact that you mentioned how the local government chairman spoke to you, but the preponderance of news in the media is that he hasn't done much and that the locals are not particularly feeling him. So I'm interested in how you were channeled into that area, and then your exact assessment of the intervention from the local government authority, and in particular the state government at this point in time. I appreciate the fact that you said that what you met on ground is not as dire as what is being reported. But then, what is the response of government for as little as that you have seen? People are dying, people have been raped allegedly, but then we are saying that, oh, it's not as bad as people are saying.
All right, your question is in order. A very, very intelligent question. Let me say, we were invited by the local government chairman. The local government actually initiated the invitation for us to see. I mean, I can also understand why he did that. Because, I mean, if you live in Enugu and you've been listening to the news, about 3 different major stations had run programs concerning these issues of killings and the riots. There's a demonstration by the women. So he felt that his reputation was being tarred, and he needed to also let independent journalists to see what was going on and assess the situation themselves. That's what I would have done if I was a local government chairman. I definitely would have invited reporters, journalists from across Enugu and across different media organizations to come and have an on-the-spot assessment on their own. So that being said, my assessment of the local government, based on what we saw on ground, I don't think he's doing so badly. I must say, I'm not his spokesperson, but based on the little observation we made, that is why when we were actually looking at it against what we had heard, because a lot of us, when we began to hear what was coming out from Isuzo, we were incited, we were angered, but I think the area that I would like to encourage him to do is to actually, look at his communication strategy. I think he needs to work a little more on that. I think even the state government needs to also help in this regard, because a lot of the people that we spoke to, it appeared as if, there was an orchestration, to get them to see things from a different light. That is, rather than see the government development that was going on in their area as something that would be of benefit to them, they were made to understand that this development that was being brought in by the government, particularly the state government and even the local government, that it was actually intended to take over their lands. So that is what we saw. So the communication angle from the local government should be intensified more. They probably need to hire someone who is, or probably even engage consultants who are probably, quite deft, or quite equipped to analyze the situation properly and design messages that will reach the locals, because it's very important that your communication to the locals is very critical. Let them understand why this development is coming on. And if there is, by perchance, anytime someone is saying, no, these people are coming in to take over our land, what are you doing to counter such claims? So I think that is where it is very important. So in my own assessment, I mean, the local government chairman could do the best he can. He's not in charge of the security agencies, as it were, but he's doing the best. For instance, I made mention of the village hunters, and he wasn't the one who told us about the organization of the village hunters. It was still the same people from Ebo, where the woman that was raped is actually from that Ebo community in Hamufu. So those were the people who told us about the organization of that village hunters. So that is even an indication that, and he also claimed, the local government chairman actually claimed that he goes on patrol, even with the security agencies. This is something that can also be verified from the security agencies. So if he can also put his foot first as a local government chairman and then, take such risk, I think he should be commended for that.
All right. All right, earlier you had cast aspersion or blamed journalists for not conducting enough investigative journalism, especially on this insecurity issues in Enugu State. Earlier I had mentioned Udi local government, and I'd like for you, because they're saying that, the church isn't spared there, Catholic priests are being kidnapped and killed on the regular. So I'd like to implore you, and kudos on the job that you're doing, to help us unravel that area as well, if you can go on an assessment of that area. Now, beyond that, I'd love for you to elaborate on the efforts of the government so far, since you said that you have, visited the Command and Control Center. I know that last month, the Enugu State Security Trust Fund received over, I believe, 3 billion naira to tackle insecurity. And you have said that the governor have deployed significant security forces, including, you said over 150 soldiers and hundreds of police officers to Ehamufu, which, I think it's a lot of security for an area you claim that is not as, volatile as you've said. You don't think that, there's a lot of insecurity in that area. Now, do you believe these measures are enough? And what more would you like to see from the government of Peter Mba to tackle insecurity as we begin to wrap up?
Okay, OG, I need to clarify something. Soldiers were deployed, 150 soldiers, I understand, and then an army barracks. I think the governor, in one of his town hall meetings, did make it clear that it was important when he took over government to do all this. We need to understand the state of insecurity before Peter Mba took over as governor and the state of insecurity in Isuzo right now. So I'm not saying that Isuzo is totally secure, as it were. I mean, given this incidents and this, some of these examples that we've given. But what we're talking about, we're making a comparison between what was and what is. You cannot compare the state of insecurity in the entire Enugu state today with what it was before. I mean, Enugu is relatively today more peaceful than it was before. Isuzo is relatively, remember that the same Isuzo, I mentioned that a lot of people were sacked from their communities. They relocated to other places. They relocated to towns. They couldn't even come back. But today, we don't have such incident. Remember also that the same Isuzo actually had IDP camps. I'm emphasizing this. They had, at the time, they had IDP camp. A very close friend of mine is from Isuzo, a colleague of mine from Isuzo. I remember when she told me that they had to abandon their home and relocate because of the state of insecurity. But I can tell you that is a different thing to get. And I'm not speaking for government. I'm saying what I know and what I heard from the people. So, but the only thing is that there are people who are still scared. They have not returned back to their homes, but then we don't have IDP camps anymore in in issues of local government. Then coming to the indictment of journalists in terms of investigative reporting. We're in the same profession, and I believe you will agree with me, that there are certain questions that would have been answered, and that would have made news headlines without our having to even go on the spot visits. But we understand how expensive it is, to sponsor a journalist undercover, to go to a community that is in crisis, to find out for himself or for herself exactly what is going on. Okay, so that's by the way. So we need a lot of funding as far as the media is concerned. It depends. So much money is required to be able to carry out such investigations. So we must have that at the back of our mind. And then concerning the UD, you have given me a mandate to go and find out exactly what is happening there. Okay, I'm going to ask questions. And then if it is possible, I will also, probably encourage the local government chairman of UDI to invite journalists to also go and do an on-the-spot assessment to determine exactly what is happening in those communities that make up his local government. So I think it's quite good. Then concerning the Peter Mba, I think I've said a lot already. Look, he has done, having seen that command and control center. Some of our colleagues were actually confessing on Friday when we were taken into that command and control center. They said that they thought that this was all hype. Look, there's a lot there. And I must say that, Enugu state government is probably doing itself, some kind of disservice by not promoting that place. But I can also understand that this is a security issue. It is not everything that you bring to the public. So I can understand that, but a lot is already going on in Enugu. Enugu is safer. Nightlife is returning. The only thing I also want to see return maybe would be, because I understand that the keke transportation and some buses at a particular time in the night, they are no longer allowed to ply the roads, so they want to see that also, lifted so that people can go out at any time and feel safe.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us on the show today, Dr. Chukwudi Anyianuka. This has been an insightful conversation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.